Welcome to Up Close, and it's a special honor for me today to have in the house one of my former students and a rising star, Miss Monique Hayes, attorney, partner at one of our major law firms, and we want to uh, talk to her today about first the experience of being a black woman attorney in the 21st century in Miami, the city of the future, and to use that as a segue to talk about the issue of diversity and inclusion, one of the most important issues facing us as we try to make a transition in our society. And so let me first say again, welcome, Monique Hayes. How are you feeling today?
Thank you. I'm actually wonderful. Thank you. I
Well, it's
appreciate
my
that.
honor. You honor us, you honor the show. And Up Close is a social justice program which we try to highlight the issues that are of central importance to upwardly mobile professionals in our city and throughout the country. And let me begin by saying that Gloria Hull and Patricia Bell Scott, years ago, in their famous book, stated, all the women are white, all the blacks are men, but some of us are brave. And what she was getting at was that black women historically have been marginalized first in society as a whole, but then marginalized even when there's a time when in those rare moments where society wakes up to the problem that there's racism, they seek black men. And historically, and when they seek women, when opportunities open up for women, too often black women are also, or at least in the past, have been marginalized.
Mhm.
And so what we want to do today is to begin by asking you about your journey. And beyond that, to ask whether or not there are any issues or unique circumstances that you feel you face as challenges as you go forward to cut a path through the forest of the law. And let me
Mhm.
begin just by saying, welcome again. Tell me about your journey.
Sure. Thank you so much. I am a native Miamian, and so when I had the opportunity, I came back here to Miami to begin law school. So I'm a graduate of University of Miami School of Law. I had the tremendous fortune of being one of your students. I took constitutional law with you, and I was one of the courses that kind of breaks a student open, particularly an American student, a Black American student, a student that has
Hmm.
family history coming from immigrant
Yes.
communities. When you get into those cases and you realize that the history is not only the American history, it's not history case law, it's the history of your people.
Yes.
And so that had a profound impact, I think, on me, and I'm sure many of your students will say the same thing. And
Thank you
so
for that.
it's an honor for me as well to have this conversation with you. My path through the law, I think I came to law school really knowing that I wanted to be a lawyer, but not really having a true appreciation for the profound responsibility of
Hmm.
what it is to be a lawyer,
Hmm. Hmm.
to be a servant and a servant of the law and not a pariah.
Yes.
Because there's, as a lawyer, you have that option,
Hmm.
and there's a particular class of lawyers that have the responsibility, so it's no longer an option to actually use what they learn and what they receive through their career as an opportunity to advance social justice. And so I do that, but in my own way.
Yes.
My practice is primarily corporate restructuring, business transactions. So I'm a business bankruptcy lawyer.
Hmm.
I had very early on in law school, I was assigned a mentor
Hmm.
who was a bankruptcy lawyer.
Hmm.
And that's how I got exposed to the practice area. So I was very fortunate in that respects. And I was through the John Kozak
Oh, great
minority
man.
mentoring
Great
program.
man. Can you tell us a
Um,
little about John
sure.
Koziak?
So my first year of law school was when that minority mentoring program, which has now gone on to be national,
Hmm.
model for diversity projects and programs within the legal profession. But my year was the first year that it started at the University of Miami,
Hmm.
and John and his partner Demetra Shaw Wilder had the vision of beginning this effort to help resource the Black law students, and then it expanded to a more diverse and general law
Hmm.
students. But they began with this project pairing law students with judges and lawyers within the community to
Yes.
make sure, because many of them were not only first time law. First generation law students, but they may have been first generation college graduates, and they had no resources within the legal community outside of what they were literally building in on the bricks at the
Hmm.
University of
Hmm.
Miami. And so they had the vision to create this mentorship program, and I had the fortune of benefiting from that. And so I was assigned a mentor who's Patricia Redmond, and she's
Hmm.
um, a nationally renowned business bankruptcy lawyer.
Hmm.
And from when I met her, she just took me under her wing. Her and her husband, also a well-known bankruptcy lawyer from Jerry Markowitz, the
Hmm.
Markowitz
Hmm.
Davis Ringel trustee firm, and Patricia's at Stearns Weaver. And they immediately kind of took a liking to me and taught me essentially everything I knew about not only the legal community but bankruptcy.
Hmm.
And so I kind of had an early start in that. And then when John Kozak's partner came to be the first woman to serve on the bankruptcy bench here in South Florida.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that was right when I was graduating law school. That was
When did you
Judge
graduate?
Isikoff. So I graduated in 2004. In
Okay.
2005 is when she was appointed, and so she became the first woman bankruptcy lawyer in Florida. And then I became her first law clerk.
Wow.
And so that was a tremendous honor for me, but also a tremendous opportunity. And so that's how I began my practice.
Wow.
And at the time that I began, I didn't appreciate even the gravity of that appointment, her appointment, and then her selection of me. Think about the
Hmm.
bankruptcy practice. I know we're going to talk about diversity. We were just recently looking at like the federal practice, and you think about the opportunities that Americans are likely to ever come into a federal
Hmm.
courthouse is
Hmm.
probably going to be a bankruptcy court.
Hmm.
That's all Americans, because most Americans are never going to find themselves in a high profile federal, civil
Yes.
litigation or a criminal case. So the
Yes.
only other time is either going to be tax law or bankruptcy law, and bankruptcy is where most Americans meet the average American, because the bankruptcy courts, of course, bankruptcy is a constitutional right. And
Yes.
why is bankruptcy a constitutional right? Because it's foundational. The idea that people are able to start with the American dream,
Hmm.
fail at it, accumulate debt, and be able to start over.
You
That's
can get a
baked
second chance.
into a second chance, a fresh start. That's baked into our Constitution. So with that as a premise, then think about who is left out of those opportunities. Think about the
Hmm.
bankruptcy bench.
Hmm.
There are just so probably 500 bankruptcy judges in the country.
Hmm. Hmm.
Under 25 of them are Black.
Hmm. Hmm.
500 in the country. Think about the 11th Circuit. We sit, of course, in the 11th Circuit, and the 11th Circuit encompasses Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and the
Hmm.
Federal Circuit. You know, statistically, that's the majority of the Black population of of America
Hmm.
within the 11th Circuit. I would say that I don't know the statistics, but I'm just going to venture and say between Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, you have a pretty good number, maybe the majority of Black Americans. Certainly in the
In
South,
South, yes.
um, we have one and have only had one and at a one overlapping period Black bankruptcy judge in the 11th Circuit period. One was in Georgia. The current one is in Alabama. We've never had one in Florida, so that was striking for me.
So
I
you're
didn't even
moving into
appreciate
a
it.
realm in which blacks have that it has historically been the preserve of people of other hues. Then.
Yes, and it's interesting when you think about the bankruptcy, because initially it was thought of as the offshoot practice, and where white shoe firms may have had the practice within their firm, but it was the work that they either pushed away or not interested in because it was dirty, it was debtors,
Hmm.
um, until people realized how much money could be made in it. So initially, the wealth of knowledge and experience, it turned out to be the Jewish community, that because that was the only work that they could get, because of course they were ostracized too, very
Right,
much like
right.
the Black community. And so for this work that no one else wanted, that would be what was given or thrown off to the Jewish community, and they developed expertise over the years in the area. But then
A
people
very complex
realized,
area.
a very complex area of the law and specialized, and then people realized there was money in it.
Oh,
And so a lot of money in it. And so it became one of those specialized practice and highly revered practice where it wasn't always that way, but eventually it became that way. And now it's one of those opportunities because it mixes the business practice as well as litigation. And so when you think about the types of careers that lawyers want, it's certainly a coveted practice, but we need more diversity.
so I can feel the energy, and I
Hmm.
can feel your deep knowledge of
Yeah.
this, and I could listen to you for hours. But I wonder if you could tell me this, and you are a Black woman in the
Hmm.
21st century, going into a field that historically was dominated by men, and going into an area of practice which was dominated by whites. Did you feel that at the time you went in, that this was a period of rising opportunity, or was this a period where did you nonetheless face challenges and difficulties that were unique to being a Black woman? Can you talk about that?
I certainly face challenges and difficulties unique to being a Black woman. I think also unique to being someone from this particular community, the South Florida community, that heavily influenced family from Caribbean, Latin American background. And so my perspective of the law was really molded in real time during my practice. I had
Hmm.
no prior insight. I had no prior direction, and I was tremendously benefited, like I said, from the COSAC mentorship program first, and then also from my clerkship, because my
Yes.
clerkship as a federal law clerk, which is also incredibly lacking in diversity, the opportunities for federal law clerks,
Hmm. Hmm.
because those are the opportunities that allow for advanced level of training for lawyers, and then advancement within corporate America, but also within um, civil rights and civil justice, and directions toward academia
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
to the federal bench. These are where you look for it. When you look through the credentials of the people that are being considered, a lot of times that people are looking for former law clerks.
Hmm.
When you look at the number of Black, Latino, Asians that get those clerkship opportunities, that's another area
Hmm.
that is diversity is tremendously lacking. And so the opportunities and the experience is not made available. I can't say that that was my experience, because I didn't even appreciate how rare it is for me to even have at the in real time as it was happening back on it. And now when I look at the numbers, when I see that it's less than 5%, and I happen to be less than 5%. And now, 17 years later, I'm a board certified business bankruptcy lawyer.
Wow.
I may be one of
Say that again. You're
a
board
board certified
certified.
business bankruptcy lawyer.
That's
I
pretty
may be
cool.
one of 10 Black women in the country
Wow.
in that. And I'm incredibly young. And that's not, and I take pride in the work that I do for my clients. I take pride in all of the knowledge that I've learned in employing that. I say that to say, even with that, and I know that I'm a good lawyer, even with that, I still know that there are lawyers that came before me
Hmm.
and lawyers that are still coming that are much better than me, that still don't have that opportunity, that still haven't had
Hmm.
even the idea of being able to be considered, to be able to advance, to have the resources to be able to, become board certified. So that makes a difference, because when you talk about dollars and cents, when I submit my fee applications, these are the things that make a difference.
Hmm.
So I'm
Hmm.
jumping to why diversity, diversity just for diversity's sake. I'm not in favor of that. I
Yes.
was recently reminded of a quote from Justice Marshall,
Yeah.
when he was getting ready to go onto the bench, and they asked him, should your seat be reserved for another
Right.
black or minority person? He said, well, don't use that as an excuse. We are not in favor of diversity for diversity's sake. This is about progression. And so he said, a black snake will bite you just like a white snake.
That's a great quote. He said,
and so I say that to say it's not just about diversity.
They both bite.
It's about representation.
Yeah.
It's about equity. It's about inclusion. Because if we want progress, diversity is absolutely not enough. That's only the starting point. But we have the diversity so we can get the power so that we can get the representation, so that we can get the equity, so that we can get the advancement. And so I use the board certification as a marker for that, because that's one of the things when they're assessing my fees and they're saying how much I'm charging, my hourly rate, because my fees have to be approved by a bankruptcy, bankruptcy judge if I'm representing a debtor in a case, and they're looking at my rates, comparing it to other people. And one of the things that will, one of the metrics for higher rates is whether you're board certified. And, they're thinking about what school you went to, the hours that you put in, the experience, the bar leadership, all of those things. But if we're, as a community, as the Black community, as a Latino community, as the LGBTQ community, if we don't have those markers, not only are we not represented, but even if we are represented, we're getting the least.
So we have a role to play as well. We have to,
Absolutely.
Make sure that we're ready when that door opens.
Absolutely.
That we have the equipment that we need to be able to play on that field.
We have the equipment, we have the tools, we have the relationships, because all of those things will be called to bear when those difficult cases come about. I just got out of one literally yesterday, just closed a bankruptcy proceeding representing a historically Black church. And it's my absolute honor to be able to have reorganized. Church bankruptcies are notoriously difficult to manage and oftentimes fail. And in this one, I'm so proud to say we paid 100% on the dollar, all of the creditors. And the church ended up to be able to, still have reserves after it. And they still have their property, and they still are able to do the work of the Lord and the work of the people. That was only possible because they had to have lawyers and professionals that were skilled to do it, but they also had to have a sympathetic judge to understand what we were going through.
So skills matter.
The skills matter. The skills matter for us to be able to do the work, for me to be able to be in the position to have done the work to help that historically Black church that has helped define this city. I needed for
what was
that
the name
reason,
of the church?
Bethel Baptist Church, and I can say that because it's a public
This
record.
isn't the Bethel Baptist Church that was in Richmond Heights.
Yeah,
because that's okay, so that's an incredible story. I didn't know that.
Yeah, we literally confirmed the bankruptcy plan, paid 100% on the dollar. The church has a full announcement, hasn't made it, but the church has zero debt. They have reserves. They have leadership that's now there that is able to.
Is this still Pastor Malone? Okay, great man.
But I say all that to say all of those things make a difference. So the things that I'm doing is not just for me. Now, when I went to University of Miami Law School, because I had to pay that law tuition. But one of the things that my very first day,
the reasonable tuition.
The reasonable tuition. I mean, it was worth every dollar. But Professor Stotsky said to me one of my first days of law school, and it still rings true to me today. I'm a lawyer to do well and to do good. So do well for myself. I mean, I don't do this as a charity. I get
That's
paid
a beautiful statement
for the work that I do. But what really matters is the good that I do. And so if I don't have the credentials, if I don't have the skills, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to be able to do the good on behalf of, be it this church client, or be it some of my clients that are trustees that are trying to recover, after a Ponzi scheme, and they're trying to bring back money to pay off people that were defrauded, and they were investing, maybe their life savings, and we need to get that money back to those people.
That's a wonderful thought. Not merely to do well for yourself, but also to do good.
To do well and to do good. That is my responsibility. in my charge.
And speaking to that, and last year, we as a country,
Hmm.
but particularly as Black people, experienced trauma. We had to witness the murder of a Black man by a police officer, and witnessed that for over 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And after that horrific event, an event capturing or exemplifying the racism of centuries, many firms, many law firms in Miami and other places made commitment statements that they were going to commit to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so you're okay. You're in the mix. You're out there. You're in the
Hmm.
trenches. I'm somewhere in academia. Imagine a candle burning, and I'm still pouring into these dusty old tones. But you're out there. Um, Let me ask you, how far have we come?
Okay, so let's on the numbers wise, we have maybe 1.3 million lawyers. This is rough. I'm giving rough numbers. Lawyers in the country. I'm very involved with the American Bar Association, so I get the reports and I know the numbers. 1.3 million. Um,
Is it
20%,
3.5%? In other words, what percentage are
80. I'll say 86% are still white male.
okay?
Okay, when you
Yes.
think about partnership ranks, um, blacks, the black lawyers that are partners, 20. If I was saying 20, that would absolutely be untrue.
I know what you're
For
saying.
women, it's 20%. For black lawyers, it's 10%.
Hmm.
10% that are partners. I'm even talking about equity partnership. I'm talking about partners in a law firm.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when you think about that,
That's actually impressive in a sense.
86%,
Yes, but I'm
yeah,
feeling yes. I
86% is still white male. So that's
yes,
still dominant over the country. The
yes.
10% is up from what it was 9% for a very long time.
And in big law firms,
And mhm.
how are we doing it with respect to big law
And the
firms?
same, so in big law firm, that includes that 10%. So it's more like when you actually look at it, when you think about that equity piece, when I talked before, we're not just here for diversity and for diversity's sake. When you really get down to it, now you're thinking about 5-6%. Now you think about the country, black the black community makes up about 13.6%.
Yes.
Latino community probably about 18%. And in a Latino community in the partnership, it may be 5%
Hmm.
nationally. We
Hmm.
have because we sit in Miami, we sometimes we get a skewed sense of reality
Yes.
on so many fronts. But
Yes.
nationally, there is a huge problem with diversity, and it impacts us all. I do have to give credit where credit
Hmm.
is due. I think the bar, and the Black Bar Association and the Congressional Black Caucus really held President Biden to task early
Hmm.
on in getting him to commit to advance Black women
Hmm.
on the federal bench. And so he has really, held up his end of the bargain on that. I give credit there. Of course, over the past few months, there are plenty of things that we can criticize President Biden for, but on being keen sense of leveling that playing field, and ultimately for what a lot of people are wanting to see, a Black woman on the Supreme Court. Before that, we have to think about the lower courts, the Black women
Hmm.
on the federal benches, the Black women on the federal appellate court. There
Hmm.
may have been 5
Hmm. Hmm.
in the entire country on the federal appeals court level.
Hmm.
And since his inauguration, I want to say President Biden has doubled that number of Black women. There's plenty of work that still needs to be done, but I have to give credit where credit is due. They are advancing on that front. But when you think
Hmm.
about the disabled community, we think about the LGBTQ plus community, there is a lot more work that we need to be done for diversity. And not only diversity in number, it's the skill and it's the acumen too.
Hmm.
Because I'm not in favor of putting someone in a position that they're not prepared to handle, and they're
Hmm.
not prepared to do the work. So you have to be sure from the school stages, from the early law firm or the early academia experience and the tutelage to train and develop lawyers so that they can go on
Mm-hmm.
to serve in an influential capacity. Absolutely. Those numbers are still jarring compared to where we are. We should have more of the
Well,
percentages
let me jump in here and ask
correct.
this question. When I think of the diversity, I think of this as a problem that often has to do not so much with hate or not so much with hostility, but with the question of culture. That, for example, maybe, among the white law firms, they are looking for people of characteristics like themselves, that they, they have high LSAT scores, or there's certain characteristics you look for. They were on law review and so forth. But maybe it's possible that in order for us to really achieve on diversity, we have to make cultural changes within the big law firms and get them to rethink what does high qualification mean, for
I think
example.
it's cultural changes, certainly, but it's just a reminder that these changes don't have to come at the sacrifice of skill and the
Hmm.
sacrifice of excellence in the law. So
Right.
for me, being a student of the law and being a practitioner, that's still a priority. So I can't
Yes.
send a matter to you. I can't assign a matter to
Right.
you because I think you're great and I want to increase diversity. And I don't expect my clients to do that. But
Hmm.
that's not a conversation that we have to have, certainly not in Miami. And I've
Hmm.
had that conversation with people, with white colleagues, clients, and counterparts. That's not a conversation that we need to have. We're not at a dearth of excellent
Hmm.
potential jurists or excellent
Right. Right. Right.
lawyers that are of color. That's not a problem that we have. But
Absolutely.
there's a sentiment and an excuse that's used is that perhaps, oh, to increase diversity, I have to somehow sacrifice on
The false
the
narrative that, yeah.
it's
But what I'm
absolutely a
trying to get
false
at is
narrative. So the culture has to change for sure.
right.
But the business model has to change as well. A lot
Right.
of it is not, it's not just cultural change. I mean, they may use that as a front, but a lot of it
Right.
is greed. A lot
Hmm.
of it is people, it's by design that people don't
Hmm.
want to share, and that's irrespective of race or gender. That's a
Hmm.
human trait. And so psychologically we need to move past that if we want something bigger for our community, for our country. Then we have to move past that to say, what types of people, what type of team do I need to put together to get the best results? um, and that is necessarily going to require you to have a diverse team.
So part of what you're saying is not merely a question of helping someone else from a different culture. It's also a question of uh, how you help yourself and how you leverage that to increase your so so in other words, I think diversity is in everyone's interest.
It's in everyone's interest. The studies, the statistics show that diverse teams make better decisions. Diverse trial teams get better results.
Hmm.
Diverse transactional teams make better decisions.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that is a matter of fact. It's not even something that I need to debate. So then why wouldn't you do what's in your best interest?
Yes.
Part of it is fear. Part of it is fear of the other, the unknown, and then part of it is greed. And we need to move past that as people. And in order for you to force, sometimes people need to do that by force. People are not going to just do it because they
Hmm.
woke up one day and said, today is the day I'm going to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, it's going to be a force. And in order to advance that force, you need the power. You need to have the influence. And so
Hmm.
that as a people is maybe another whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But oh gosh, there's so many things. So even
Sometimes they
think
need
about
a prompt.
you need the prompt and we need to be strategic. I think about this in the context of where we sit in South Florida. There's
Hmm.
no reason why the immigration court that sits here shouldn't reflect the diversity of this community.
Hmm.
No reason why. And
Hmm.
that's something I don't hear anyone talking about. The bar associations, the minority bar associations, anyone. That's a tremendous priority because in order for us to serve the people here,
Hmm.
we have a huge Latin American and Caribbean population. They're going before judges that don't have a clue about their experience.
Hmm.
And that's not
Hmm.
no they know the law, of course. They're credentialed, but it's a totally different thing to be of the community, to be able to relate to the people that are coming before you and make decisions that are consistent with the law, but also equitable.
Okay, okay. And I just want to say to our viewers, we've been listening to Monique D. Hayes, attorney, graduate of UN, and trailblazer.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you for blazing the trails. Thank you for, as you make your rise up the ladder of the profession, that you've managed to keep with you and not lose your sense of identity and your sense of commitment to making Miami. Um, a place with more justice
Yeah.
and not just profiting, not just doing good for yourself, but doing well
Yeah.
for others.
That's what we all should have as a top priority. And you can do both. You can do both.
So, so you honor me, you honor the show. I hope that we'll have other opportunities to explore these important issues and keep doing good. They say in the scripture, don't get weary of well doing.
Hmm.
And so I hope you won't get too weary and that you'll keep on blazing the trails.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Once again, to our viewers, you've been watching Up Close, social justice program, and one of the things we're going to continue to do is try to highlight the rising stars in our community, people who not only do a good job for themselves in the community, but who do also good jobs in terms of social justice under law. Thank you so much.
Thank you.